Hey folks, this is Prepping Data with SQL week 10. In this challenge, we're going to be using the solution we had in week 9. If you haven't done that challenge, you can check the link in the description for my GitHub account, which will have the solution for week 9 there. In this challenge, we're going to be taking that solution and then doing much more iterations on it. We're going to be doing a lot of common table expressions in this, but we'll be also touching on variables in SQL. Anyway, let's dive into this one. Okay, so I'm in Snowflake. I brought in all those instructions. I've got my solution from week 9. You could save this as a table. You could do create table. So you could store this on your database as like a table. Go and create a table, then reference that. For me, I'm not. I'm going to be just using this. I'm going to store it as a common table expression and reference it that way. Okay, step 1, we're going to need to go and aggregate this data so we have a single balance every day in the data set for each account. What I'm going to need to do is go and sum these transaction values here to work out the total transactions on that day. But the balances, I'm going to need to find the last entry of the balance for each day. I can't just sum these two, otherwise my client has suddenly gained like double their money almost. What I need to do is try and find the last one, so I'm going to use row number in that case, but sum to find this transaction value first of all. Okay, so that's looking good for my transactions. I'm going to go and put that into a common table expression, and then I'm going to go and find those balances. Okay, so back on this, what I'm going to do is add a row number here to go and work out the order. From there, I can work out what was the final entry. So I've taken the same partition and order by from that we had from the running sum from week 9. It's not really working the way I wanted to. I wanted a partition on those days as well, but I also wanted to be ordered the other way so that we have the last entry comes up as 1. So that's going to be much easier for me to go and query. And you can see here now that we get these transactions coming through. So now I can just go and query this, just returning just where row number equals 1. I can't do that here because it's as a window calculation. So I'm going to make this common table expression and then go and query that. Okay, so I've got the final balance on each day for each client. I'm just going to go and tidy this up and then I can join these all together. Again, ambiguous column name. I just need to go and add in this alias. Okay, one thing, I do not want the transaction value from B. I want it from T, the table with transactions. So, okay, because that's going to give me the sum of those transactions for all those days. I'm going to put that into a common table expression and then move on to the next question. Okay, scaffold the data so each account has a row between 31st and 14th. Okay, so what we're going to need to do here is use a technique called a recursive common table expression. It's where you can go and take common table expression and create a list of numbers. We're then going to change that into a list of dates, so we can use that scaffolding principle here. Okay, so what this is a recursive common table expression called numbers. So here I've just said I want to start my list at number 1 and call that n. Then in my second part, I'm going to go and query the same common table expression and just say I want n plus 1, where I don't want n to go above 10. So then I'm able to then query the result of this and it gets me a list of numbers 1 to 10. So this is very useful for scaffolding. So now I can go and convert these into dates. Okay, so I've run this query again. I've just changed this up so it's not numbers, but it's dates. Now I can get a list of my date range that I want. So what I need is my account numbers. So I'm going to go and find a distinct list of all my accounts, and I'm going to bring that in here to this recursive common table expression. Okay, so I rerun that, and now I can get these dates reoccurring for every account ID I have. Okay, so I've built out my little data scaffold. I now need to go and join this back to that daily summary I had earlier. Okay, to show what's going on here, I've gone and sorted this data. So I've done a left join here so I can go and have all those transaction values as null where there wasn't a transaction. So what's going to happen here is the numbers that I've generated here for my scaffold, my dates, and my account numbers, they're going to replace the account numbers and the transaction dates in my daily summary common table expression. Okay, so we've got an issue here with the balance. So it's coming up null. So for example, if I brought up this client's account on the 1st of February, it'd be a bit strange to say, oh, you don't have any balance when they haven't done any transactions or anything in the time period from their last balance entry. So what I need to do is try and fill balance with the previous balance that's available. Okay, so what I've done here is I've joined to that earlier common table expression where I worked out all the balances. So what I want to do here is just join on the account IDs and then find the latest balance for this client. So what I'm going to do here is work out the date difference between these two tables and then reduce that down so I can find the minimum. Okay, so if I tie this query up, you can see here I'm bringing in this extra transaction date here where I've got my extra balance here. The only issue is going to be later on where potentially I could be bringing in older balances when I really want the latest balance where we have it. So I'm going to work out the difference between these two dates and then go for the one that's the closest to the current date. Okay, so I've got my date diff. Now to cut down on all these duplicate rows, what I'm going to do is implement row number so I can then filter for the correct balance date. Should all tidy this up nicely. On the 3rd of February, we didn't have a balance here, but I was able to pull in balances for before that date, so the 2nd and the 31st of Jan. Which one we're going to pick here is now going to be based on row number equals 1. So I'm going to pick this date, which is the closest to, this is the previous balance from the previous day. Okay, so that all looks good to me. What I'm going to do now is just going to remove all those extra columns. Okay, so that looks good to me. So if I wanted to go and filter this for this date, I'm going to bring back a balance, but no transactions on that date. You may have seen me go and edit the aliases or add aliases to the columns above. This is because how things will work. If I try and call, say, a transaction date, and from the table and it has two transaction dates, I'm going to get an error. So I'm just giving those different aliases so I don't pick the wrong columns here. Okay, last few bits. So create a parameter so a particular date can be selected. What this will be in SQL is setting a variable. So this is quite simple to do. It's just set. Then you give your variable a name. So I'm going to call this, say, selected date. And then I'm going to give it a value. So in this case, I'm going to just call it 23rd dash. Okay, so what I've done here is I've done this command set, which will set a variable. Here's my variable name, selected date, and here's the value I want to assign to it. So 1st of Feb. I'm going to end this with a semicolon here, just to say this is the end of this query, and then this other query starts next. Okay, so I made a parameter. Now I need to just go and filter it to this parameter. How I will do that is in my final query, in the where clause, I can then enter this parameter to filter my data. This is one note that you'll have to put a $sign here on Snowflake to declare that this is a variable and not just another column from somewhere. Okay, so I've run into an error here. Session variable selected date does not exist. That is because I've just run one query. What I need to do is run all the queries. So I can do this and do run all. So you see, once I got to that second query value, then I got this coming back. Okay, I'm only getting one account back because I have filtered the account ID earlier. I'm going to get rid of that filter. And there we go. So now I can have all the accounts for a particular date. A lengthy query, but we got to see variables being used there, as well as getting more used to like row numbers, common table expressions, all that good stuff. This query will be available on my GitHub account, link in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.